What's popular YouTube? Another day, another demo. And coming into the new year, I'm not personally ready to just hop into the demos again. Still got some stuff to unpack from the last year. I took a little break. We come back recording some new content. But I thought, hey, we did 20 videos in a row to go and list off Laos Top 20 of 2021. And now HLTV have just done theirs. And if you missed it, at twitch.tv/HLTV.org, you can go and watch the VOD from their top 3 player announcement. And it was an award show. And they handed them out live and did live interviews and did a really, I think his name is Filk, edited the top 20 highlight frag movie. I'm sure we can include some clips in this video as I talk about it, but it was really cool. And it was a great way to end off last year and also start up this one before we get into the new season with all these new teams, all these roster moves. The fact that G2 have Monacy, Vitality have their lineup. Is there now a threat for Na'Vi with some of these teams looking at long-term projects? That stuff is really cool, but it was great to also just get a bird's eye view of the top 20 list, the top 21 list for both HLTVs and mine. I wanted to look at it and see like, oh, you know, did I have any problems with HLTV's list? Did I have any revisions I feel like I would have made? And yeah, there are a few. 2022 sucks. But what if you could make $2,000.22? SellYourSkins.com. It's all in the title. You sell your skins to cash out of those lovely works of art in your inventory with some of the lowest fees on the market, so you can finally put a dent in those pesky student loans. It's super easy with a variety of payment methods, including cash, crypto, credit card, etc. And if you use my code LAO, you get a welcome bonus. Thank you, Sell Your Skins, for sponsoring this video and making my content possible. Link in the description below. Back to the video. First things first, I liked my list a lot this year. Last year I did something like a prediction list of the HLTV top 20, and I felt like it was good, but at the same time my heart wasn't in it. Okay, Ngannou is fighting Cyril Gane tonight. Cyril Gane. I think Cyril Gane is gonna win because after he fought against Derek Lewis, the Black Beast, I was really shocked at how much better he looked, even though I know Derek Lewis not the most technical fighter. But now with the step up versus Ngannou, I still think he's gonna win, but I still put $100 on Ngannou, you know what I mean? That's where my heart's at. Ngan God, okay? So that's all to say. From now on, I'm gonna start, I'm gonna go with my heart on everything. I think it's a better way to live. All right, so I'm gonna stop doing prediction lists and stuff like that, just my list. Next year, I'd love to know as well, how could we ramp it up? What can we do next year to make the top 20 a little bit better, even more competitive? Maybe we can do our own live show, get a sponsor on that. What's up, Pinnacle? You want to come in and sponsor, do a live show with me? Let's do it. That's what I'm trying to do. But before that, I'd like to ask you, we can use this comment section as a forum. What were the players that you thought should have been on the list or should have been on the list? My number one biggest regret, I'm standing naked in the middle of Times Square right now, fully exposed, okay? My number one regret on this list, and a few people brought it up, was not having Frozen on the list. I think thinking about that, I think I do regret putting Rez, and I kind of feel like I could have squeezed in Frozen. And the more I looked at it afterwards, the less I understood why I made my initial choice. Especially with my specific emphasis on the major and some of these bigger games. And I think the very biggest difference between my list and HLTV's was that I heavily weighted certain matches and certain tournaments. And I don't regret that. I'll actually continue to do that. Because I stand by the idea that some of these games are just so important and some of these moments are really player defining. And even if you don't get a lot of chances to play them, that's just what determines how good you are, in my opinion. So I'm surprised Alige made the list on HLTVs going down. All the way from 20, they got Brokian. I thought that was like quite low, especially even above him. Rops is another guy. I was like, you know what? Maybe I had Rops a bit high, but I don't really have any. I didn't think about it too much. This like 12 to 20 area was kind of messy. I think starting from Yakinder is where I was thinking maybe you could, you know, make some differences. When we look at the HLTV list, Yakinder was at 8. I had him up at 12, I believe. And I think, you know, there was a world where Yakinder could have been higher for me. Of course, HLTV really rode heavily on their impact statistic. But I found with some players who have low impact, I don't see it in the same way HLTV does. So whether that's, I'm right or their stats are accurate the way they do it. I don't know, but I can't go with just their impact rating. When I look at a player, I'm like, no, he does have impact or whatever. So yeah, Yakinder was just high regardless. I had bid at 5, and I knew that I didn't think anybody else was going to have bid as high as I did, and that's fine. For me, I feel like Bit was not just a rookie this year. He was a complete game changer for the organization of Na'Vi. He helped them win their first major. It's the first time Simple has had 2 teammates in the top 20. This is the first time he's ever had a third player who's as consistent as Bit, period. Bit's the second best rookie of all time behind Zywoo. In some ways, even more accomplished, obviously, with the major win. And I feel like for all those reasons, like, not only, it was actually Bit that was boosting a lot of people, I feel like, to get the major win, where Na'Vi have not won one in history. You could easily credit that to Bit in a large way. And for this reason, actually, I thought it was also weird to have so many Gambit players rated higher than the Na'Vi players. To me, that didn't add up. Tongue-in-cheek, I said, okay, they have 3 Gambit players in the top 6 with Electronic in 7th. I was a bit salty, but I thought Lantronic got robbed. I felt like Electronic should have been higher. I had him in top 4. I just really didn't see him outside of top 5, period. Stats argument, eye test, whatever you want to call it. But on top of the fact that Na'Vi literally won 5 out of 6 lands they attended, 5 out of 5 lands they attended, and the only land they didn't attend was IEM Winter, where Vitality won. And then there was V4 Budapest, which Gambit won, but that was just a tier 2 tournament. And Simple was the only player on his team in top 5. I didn't really see that. I don't really see how that's possible. At the same time, Gambit were definitely the second best team of the year, and there's Nico and Zywoo who were definitely going to be 2 and 3. I get that, but for me, Na'Vi were number 1 with all of the LAN wins. That was the big thing. And Electronic was a huge part of that, especially in finals, big matches. Yeah, so that combo with Simple Electronic Bit, them being in top 5, I was really happy about. And I felt like the biggest robbery for me for the HLTV list was Electronic being at 7. Even though it's still high, it's still a very good placement. I didn't have Blame F on the list where HLTV has him at 13. It's kind of weird because when I thought about Blame F, I was like, if I put him on the list, he might be in here somewhere in that area somehow. The reason I didn't have him on my list is just because I felt like so many of the performances of his teams were inconsequential. He was the IGL of these rosters, and even though he was getting stats, he specifically has a role that grants him stats, and I just felt like there was, like, as much as you could say he had a high impact rating on or something, I mean, in the grand scheme, he didn't really have a real team this whole year. It didn't really feel like he was in the mix in any meaningful way. And I know he's going to get good stats anyways, so I just felt like there was... I don't feel bad about that. I think he did show at the end of the year with the Blast Fall Final that he could play on LAN on a real team and everything like that. So I just think next year will be the year that I include him. I'm sure he'll be there, but I didn't really care to have him there. Hunter actually DM'd me, and he said he wanted to say he actually agreed with a lot of the points in the video that I made about him. I had him at top 7 on my list. He left me a compliment. He said it's really nice coming from you. Understands the game really good is what he said, which was very sweet of him. And he said he didn't think HLTV would have him as high as I did, and neither did I. And I've had him that high for 2 years now. So I think I had him 1 place off in 2020, number 7 in 2020, and number 9 in 2021. For me, it was, Nico and Hunter were the 2 forces on the team that made G2 as competitive as they were. And Zywoo was probably the better player by himself. But the Nico Zywoo thing is so interesting. I mean, obviously I had him at number 2, but I consider the thought of having Nico 1-up, in number 2. But that would have taken a bit of mental gymnastics, I feel like. He did have some really good stats in his favor. Again, if you watch the number 2 and 3 video, for me, it came down to who I believed was the better player, and also the fact that Zywoo could rifle and op at that number 2 level, but Nico could only rifle at that number 2 level and at number 3 level, number 2 level. But opping, he couldn't do that. So to hold the op thing over Zywoo, I didn't like that argument. And it's especially because Zywoo does a lot of rifling, actually. There's a couple of people who are very upset, actually, that Shiro didn't get into number 3. And I obviously had him down at 6. It's not that... I guess people were like, oh, do you hate Gambit? I'm like, honestly, I don't know anyone who hates Gambit. I love Gambit. Their story is so amazing this year. For me, it was just completely about the transition to LAN and the discrepancy. And the only thing that I struggled with that really caused me turmoil inside was the idea that if Gambit did not play well online, and then went to LAN and played as well as they did, in some ways, that would have made them look better because they improved on LAN. But because there was a clear and, calculable decrease in performance when they got to LAN, whereas for G2 it was the opposite, for Navi it was the opposite. For me, that discrepancy is what took points away from them. That's the only reason. It's just how, compared to how well they actually performed online. So the only part I struggle with, the fact that they didn't perform as well online, and then they just improved as the year went on and just transitioned to LAN, and then they would have just been super solid. But for me, they still have that kind of mantle of, like, along with Heroic, of, I don't want to say onliners, of course, they're insane. They have top 4 at the major. They're like, better online, right? That's the kind of story for me for 2021 for them. And then the story going into 2022 hopefully will be different. Device is another one that was kind of weird, but he had a real team, unlike Blame F, and he grabbed number 11. I had him a little bit higher. There was a part of me I had him at number 10. There was a part of me that felt like strange because of how strong their last year was, and then they came into this year. Obviously, it doesn't matter for this next list, but it probably gave me a different view of the player. And I think the same thing happened with Rops, where I had him at 14. I just felt like there was no way he could drop that many more spots. But in reality, I think it's probably true. You could argue that they were better or worse than those positions that I put him in. I thought K-Serrata was way too high, number 15. I thought Naf was too high at number 14. I'm actually pretty shocked about that. I think Naf for me was on the list. He was on the list. That high? I don't know. I don't know about all that. And K-Serrata, I mean, I don't know. He was really good in NA, but like he had the major. He had like 2-3 big events. Not really on the same level as the players who would come after him on the list. So that was quite a big surprise for me. I feel like K-Serrata 15, you could, even talk about Yuri, I think, closely behind him. Because those were two that I was thinking about. Even Safe comes into the conversation somehow, even though he didn't play. He played a lot of NA stuff. I had him on the list, but 15 I'm kind of surprised about. Definitely, for me, like, no way K-Serrata's above Stown. No way. Honestly, after watching Stown's demo, which was one of the best demos to watch of the top 20 videos, if you want to go back and watch any, just from that demo, I was like, Stown needs to be higher. He was so amazing, and he had a great year. He had a tough end to the year. If you guys didn't know, he afterwards, after the Blast World final, which he didn't attend, he said that he lost a member of his family that was really close, and he didn't show up for the Blast World final, which could have obviously been big for Heroic and himself, but what are you going to do in that situation? You have to give him space to deal with that grief. And it's just a horrible place to be. I feel like we're getting to that age where some of these things are starting to happen to people we know, which is really sad. But yeah, him and Twists for clearly above K-Serrata, in my opinion, and also Nafly. Apart from that, maybe Tame could have been a bit higher. I don't know. I kind of like where I landed. And Elian squeezing in there, like, that's our place. Maybe you could have just put Frozen, I think, objectively, I guess. HLTV did not have him, anywhere on the list or whatever. I felt like he had a really strong year overall. And at the end, I wanted to give kind of like an underrated shout out to somebody who did as much as they possibly could at their level and also played at the major and also put up consistent stats throughout. For number 1, obviously, Simple is quite clear. Axile, I felt like being top 5 was a little bit high for me, just to have Shiro, Axile, Hobbit all 4, 5, and 6 right there. I thought that was pretty surprising, especially over Electronic, and for me is Bit, but it's easy to argue against Bit. I just gave you my logic for why I've got him that high. But yeah, some thoughts about the HLTV top 20, comparing our lists. Hopefully we can just have them both up on the screen for this video so we can just compare as I talk about them, because I've just been switching back and forth. I highly recommend going through the HLTV top 20 players and reading all the articles and watching some of the videos from the year, reliving some of those moments, and make sure to soak it up, because this is the only one of 2 breaks that we get in the year in the Counter-Strike calendar. And there's so many great moments that these players put every minute of their day into providing for us, whether it's the effort, the practice, all the stuff we don't see. And in Counter-Strike, we quickly move on. So I think it's great to revisit and take some time to digest and really appreciate what we've watched, because there's been so much amazing content and so many amazing matches and stuff from the last year. But yeah, before you know it, we're going to be talking about 2022, a fantastic way to end 2021 with the top 20 lists. Can't wait to do it again next year, and looking forward to Blast, where I'll be recording some new demo reviews. So please join me for that. Thank you as always for watching, and be safe.
Got my paws all dirty. Looking for a plate, that's why the dogs up early. With it white beard, eat it like a McFlurry. for my daddy, ho.